Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank our witnesses for being here today. Really appreciate it. As we discuss family support provisions in the tax code, it's important to remember there are several provisions in the tax code that may not get mentioned today, but have a substantial impact on working families and the populations we're focusing on here. In fact, just last week, Chairman Wyden, Ranking Member Crapo, Senator Cardin, and I hosted a joint roundtable of the Senate Finance Committee and Small Business Committee to discuss how the tax code's complexity impacts small businesses. Each participant at that roundtable expressed support for restoration of full and immediate expensing under Section 174. This is something I've been advocating for through my American Innovation and Jobs Act with Senator Hassan. What I found striking was the testimony from the small business owner roundtable participants about what they would do with those tax savings. They'd hire more employees, provide additional compensation or bonuses to existing employees. They'd offer educational incentives and scholarships and provide enhanced health care and other benefits. And these employees they were talking about supporting were not highly compensated executives. They were average Americans who are working to provide for their families and support their communities. It was a helpful reminder that supporting our small businesses translates into supporting America's working families. In addition to ensuring we have quality jobs available for working families, we also want to make sure those families have safe and affordable housing near those jobs. I'm proud to work with Senator Cantwell on the Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act to build upon the successes of the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit, or LIHTC program. This bill directly supports working families by facilitating the construction of much-needed affordable rental housing stock. Additionally, I'm pleased to be working with Senator Cardin this Congress on the Neighborhood Homes Investment Act, which would use the tax code to promote home rehabilitation and ownership among low and middle income families in distressed neighborhoods. While the tax credit programs we're discussing today are an important component of our tax code support for working families, they're certainly not the end of the story. I encourage my colleagues to support these other legislative initiatives and the great potential they offer for strengthening America's families and future. Professor Meyer, in your written testimony, you point out that the National Academy of Sciences conducted a study that modeled the income and poverty effects of policies similar to the CTC, but when they directly modeled the impacts of replacing the CTC with a child allowance, they failed to incorporate changes in employment, even though they incorporated changes in employment when analyzing other tax credits. Can you please share why you believe employment effects were specifically excluded in the modeling of the child allowance?
Thank you for the question, Senator. The report is quite peculiar. This was a very influential report that the President and much of the research on the effects of the CTC is cited. In the report, it says that you don't need to worry about the return to work when there's an existing CTC, when there isn't an existing CTC. But it then indicates that the calculations done in the report are with the 2015 tax law baseline and then redone with a second set of estimates using a post-TCGA baseline. In neither case, though, does this report incorporate the effect of changing the return to work. It doesn't include this return when it examines expanding the EITC as an option, but never when it is cutting the CTC by replacing it with a child allowance, i.e. CTC for those who don't work. If we were to apply their methods evenly across the tax credits, we would find a larger employment response than in the estimates that we provided that had a very substantial 1.5 million person decline in work from the ARPA CTC.
Well, this seems like certainly an oversight at best. but a weakness in the data, which will need to be remedied. And in the interim, I think we're all going to have to just do our best based on some of the historical analogs we can think of. Based on your understanding of the CTC and the proposed child allowance, do you believe replacing the CTC with an allowance would have an impact on employment?
Yes, substantially. And I do think that the best analog is to look at what happened when we reformed welfare and saw an unprecedented increase in employment following it in the 90s.
Thank you, Dr.